Hello, I'm Toby Jones and welcome to Toby Jones Talks Music. Today we are going to talk about Kenny Rogers, one of my favourite country music singers. Probably tied at the top between him and Glenn Campbell. I do like Johnny Cash, Marty Robbins, Charlie Pride. Could you call Frankie Lane sort of halfway in between as a country music singer, I guess? But I think Kenny Rogers and Glenn Campbell are my top two. If I had to choose between the two, maybe possibly just Glenn Campbell, but Kenny Rogers is one that I really enjoy. And a couple of days ago I was looking for some Kenny Rogers to listen to, so I gravitated for this single album, this compilation by Kenny Rogers and the first edition Star Collection. You can see the members of the band on the front. As a side note, I always thought that she looked like Karen Carpenter. Maybe nobody else sees that, but I certainly do. So this is a single album with probably the ones you would possibly know as a Kenny Rogers fan, or maybe if not, but the ones that you would know would be Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town, Just Dropped In to See What Condition My Condition Was In, and Reuben James. Some interesting info about the vinyl, actually. Doing a bit of research for this video has sent me down a little bit of a rabbit hole all about this label, or actually the series, which is Star Collection, which is released on this label here, the MIDI label. So this was actually a budget repressing of an earlier album. So this was released, I think, in 73 or 74. And this was a budget reissue of 1971's Greatest Hits. Now, this Star Collection series had many releases in the early 70s, so when I was looking on Discogs just now, there were artists ranging from Alice Cooper, Donna Summer, The Drifters, Frank Sinatra, Ike and Tina Turner, Lulu, and then of course Kenny Rogers in the first edition. So you can see this was very sort of late 60s, early 70s, and what this label would do, the MIDI label under the Star Collection release, is that they basically would repress greatest hits, or even, I think when I saw the Alice Cooper one, I'm not familiar with the Alice Cooper catalogue, but I think it was a studio album that they'd repressed and reissued as just a Star Collection. So this one is a budget repressing of 1971's greatest hits. And it was said about this label that some of the album art wasn't great, it was quite poor, some of the covers, but actually I think this cover is a damn sight better than the cover that was used for the Greatest Hits album, because it's just quite a bland silver almost. I can't find a proper cover, if you like. All I can find is one from Discogs, which has got a bit of glare on it, but all I can see is kind of like a bit of a silver embossed cover that doesn't really do anything for it, whereas this cover is really good stuff. So I like really Kenny Rogers as a solo artist, but for those who don't know, Kenny Rogers did have a group, Kenny Rogers in the first edition, for probably about 7 or 8 years. So some of these singles from the late 60s, as I said, you've got Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town. Also on this album, you've got But You Know I Love You, Mama's Waiting, Heed the Call, I Believe in Music, Something's Burning. That was quite a controversial song. I'll talk about that in a little more detail shortly. Love Woman and Tell It All Brother. And I'll be honest, I don't love everything that's on here, but as kind of 35 or 40 minutes of Kenny Rogers, it was something that I enjoyed. So, after that 40 minutes, I thought, no, I want a little bit more Kenny Rogers. So then I went to this, which was a later compilation album, but does have some relevance to the earlier one. So this is Kenny Rogers' 10 Years of Gold. This was released in 1978. So all of the tracks from the first album that I showed are repeated. So on side 1 we have Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town, Reuben James, But You Know I Love You, Something's Burning, and Just Dropped In. But the twist here is that all of these songs are re-recorded for this compilation album. Now I couldn't find anything on Wikipedia or around the web explicitly of why they were re-recorded, but I can only imagine maybe that this might be for rights issues. Kenny Rogers was still very early on in his solo career at this point, so he'd had Love Lifted Me, Daytime Friends, and the self-titled Kenny Rogers album. So from that album, the last one I've just mentioned, Lucille, was a massive hit, much bigger than anything he'd had before. Daytime Friends was the title track from the album I mentioned as well, and Love Lifted Me, and While the Feeling's Good, which is on side 2 as well, is also from the Love Lifted Me album. And then interestingly, to finish off this album, we have Today I Started Loving You Again, which is the original version from an album called Back Roads that Kenny Rogers did with the first edition in 1972. Well, some of these re-recordings have more success than others in my opinion. Kenny having a good time on the back cover there, having a nice smile. But these were all re-recorded for this album again, I assume, because of rights issues. The first two tracks, Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town and Reuben James, I slightly prefer the version on this album, slightly better vocal on these. But You Know I Love You, track 3, I probably prefer the original, but the 10 Years version is okay. Something's Burning, the fourth track, the original has a softer vocal, and this was quite a controversial song at the time because it's quite overtly, I guess, sexual and sensual, and wasn't really accepted in the US, or at least the guys didn't think it would be accepted in the US, so the band performed this track on This Is Tom Jones in the UK, and that was then exported out to the US, so it did become somewhat of a hit after that, and then just dropped in to see what condition my condition was in. Well, that's a mouthful to start off with, isn't it? But I definitely prefer the original of this, because this was, and I guess a lot of, well, I say a lot, I don't know a lot of the first edition music, I don't tend to be a Kenny Rogers historian. This track had quite a psychedelic sound to it back in the day, the original did, and it just doesn't work on the 10 Years of Gold version. All 5 of these re-recordings are more polished versions of their original versions, but I really don't like the effect on the opening vocal, and the whole arrangement on this one just feels tame compared to the original. The original is a real gem, and the re-recording just doesn't stack up at all on this. The side 2, as I said, Lucille, classic. Daytime Friends, really like that one. Love Lifted Me, really good. The other 2 tracks, to be fair, on the top of my head, I can't remember them all that much, and that's the same really with this album, the Star Collection. I don't know everything back to front on this album, but I still did very much enjoy listening to these 2 albums. And I've talked a lot about the CD and vinyl divide that I have in the last few years, I guess, on the channel. I made a video saying 5 reasons why I went from vinyl to CD, and just to really paraphrase that for those of you who it might be my first video here, I started buying vinyl, I guess, 6 odd years ago now, and bought a lot of vinyl, and then I got quite frustrated with vinyl, the skips and the storage space of vinyl, that I started buying CD. The one problem with CD, and I'm going to show this here, I have got a compilation of Kenny Rogers and the first edition on CD. This was just a bargain charity shop buy, so 26 all-time country classics. But there's just too much here. There's too much here. It's nice. What is nice with the vinyl release is that there's 10 tracks. It's all over within 35-40 minutes. The constraints of the format actually helps it in that you are restricted with how many tracks you can have on the album, whereas this, 26 tracks, yes, all on the one album, but I'd imagine this runs at about an hour, I would guess. And particularly if you just want to hear some of Kenny Rogers, this is just a bit too much. And the same with this, really. And this is a good, don't get me wrong, this is a really good compilation. I recommend any of these. You've got the essential sets, the free CD essential sets, you've got these, and the gold sets as well. So you can see triple here, and some nice album artwork from Kenny's career. But when I listened to this for the first time, I listened to it all in one day, back to back, and 3 CDs of Kenny Rogers, I think probably about 3 hours all in all of Kenny Rogers, is probably a little bit too much. And that's the nice thing with the vinyl format. That it's only a single album, and the constraints of the format helps it. There's only 10 tracks on both of those compilation albums. But also that they were released at the time. 10 Years of Gold came out in 1978. That was still relatively early on in Kenny Rogers' solo career. So The Gambler hadn't come out yet. Coward of the County hadn't come out yet. Lady hadn't come out yet. So the constraints of these very much helps them, is what I'm trying to say. They are both of their time. They're not littered. That's probably a harsh word to say. Littered or changed by retrospective hits. Looking back, for example, at the release of this, and going, well, what were the hits and what were the big songs, and we'll put those on here. Of course, with this, with it being 3 CDs, it is a more expanded view, so it's not just the hits that's on here. But hopefully you can understand what I'm saying, that on the first CD of these tracks, the first 6 tracks of Ruby Don't Take Your Love to Town, Lucille, Coward of the County, Lady, Through the Years, and Don't Fall in Love with a Dreamer, which are 6 of Kenny Rogers' probably biggest tracks. Whereas at this point, I mean, there's 4 of those tracks didn't exist for Kenny Rogers. This has what is good at the time, what the contemporary sounds are. So that is the nice thing with these compilation albums, and I did enjoy revisiting them over the last couple of days, I have to say. Really enjoyed listening to them, and I've been going back to vinyl a little bit to listen to more of those compilation albums, because that is a big thing about the single compilation album, 10 or 12 tracks. I just want to hear 3 parts of an hour, 45 minutes of Kenny Rogers, and those do the job. Whereas these, there may be more of a commitment to go and listen to. But that's what I wanted to say in today's video. These 2 albums, thoroughly enjoyed going back to them and listening to them. It has encouraged me possibly to go and revisit more of my vinyl, because a lot of it is just sitting there, hasn't been played for a long time, unloved, and I thoroughly enjoyed listening to both of these. Maybe apart from Just Dropped In from this album, but that's all about being critical, isn't it, and saying what I think. But to be fair, when I was listening along to the album just in the background while I was doing something else, it was okay, but then listening to it again this morning, I thought, God, I really prefer the original. I'd be interested what you think, you Kenny Rogers fans down below. Are these tracks, so looking at the difference between what's on side 1 of here, the re-recordings, and what's on here, which ones do you prefer? And do you like the early first edition stuff? Do you like this stuff? Or maybe even the later stuff, the late 70s and 80s stuff, or maybe even beyond? I've talked about on this album how this has introduced me to some of the tracks from Water and Bridges, which was from the early 2000s. The last 10 years, really liked that one. I Can't Unlove You, I really loved that one. I really liked that one. There's another one, I can't find it though on here. But that's introduced me to some of that, and I haven't listened to all of Kenny Rogers' stuff, far from it. I've listened to a few of the 70s albums, but not a lot outside the greatest hits. And I don't rule out listening to everything by Kenny Rogers in the future. But those are really tight, nice, compact collections, and thoroughly enjoyable for me to listen to. There'll be more of these ramblings on the channel, as the channel is called Toby Jones Talks Music. These videos are also available in podcast form on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. We have social profiles on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and all of those good social networks, so you can keep up with the channel on there as well. All that's left to say is have a good rest of your day, and hopefully you'll tune into more content in the future. There'll be a video up there you may well be interested in from the archives of the channel possibly. But until the next time, make sure to subscribe down below, like the video if you enjoyed, comment as well, and I'll see you all in the next one.